Hello, world. This is going to be a two-game recap in one. We did miss game four. Unfortunately, I was on playback, which means I spent more time yapping than watching the game, and I didn't want to give you guys a bad recap just for the sake of doing a recap. So I thought you guys would appreciate it more if we waited a little bit and we could give you more in-depth discussion on the games as we were ready to do so. So apologies for that, but you will get a two-game recap in one. OKC have actually won the last two games, so I guess that makes it a little bit easier. We'll start with game four that happened on Friday evening. We're now 3 days removed from that, I think. John D, what are your thoughts on that game four that OKC tied the series up 2-2?
I think Indiana made the necessary plays to win that game in game four. I think Hallie was aggressive. I think they were knocking down their shots. I think they were taking care of the ball. I think they did a really good job of getting paid touches with Halliburton. I thought they were taking advantage of the double big lineup to start the game. Even though Isaiah Hartenstein has had a relatively good series, I do think that they were getting some pretty good looks just based off putting him in the action and having a quicker lineup than that. As far as SGA, I don't think he played well until that fourth quarter, especially with just having tunnel vision throughout the game, not making the necessary plays. The Thunder were extremely cold from three in that game. I think they were 3 for 16. Offensively, it just looked really bad. It was either one pass away or an isolation. Literally, it would be SGA, isolation, J-Dub, isolation, Aaron Wiggins. Let's see what we can get from you. Even though I thought Aaron Wiggins would play more in that game just because I thought they would need the ball handling the way they were guarding Shea. J-Dub couldn't necessarily get everything he wanted on the perimeter. Sometimes his possession looked really ugly. And throughout most of that game, that OKC offense just did not look like it could keep up with what Indiana was doing in the half court and in transition. Now we get to the fourth quarter and OKC start to switch everything defensively. I think that was the adjustment that they made in the fourth quarter to keep Indiana from really creating that advantage and really creating really good looks on the perimeter. And Indiana struggled. They really struggled. And OKC started to get hot. SGA started to knock down shots. J-Dub started to knock down shots. People were getting to the rim more consistently, getting to the free throw line. So I think that's where OKC won the game. And that game shows me and confirms that they just have much more room for error. They have a bigger margin for error. They can have this slow offensive game throughout the three quarters, but their defense can keep them at a floor to where they could still be in striking distance, to where if their offense is clicking like we saw today and they're racking up turnovers like they did, they can win any game, even with how egregious they were throughout the first three quarters. So shout out to SGA. Again, through three quarters, I was in the playback chat hating on SGA. Hating on him, saying this is not the guy that y'all are comparing to Kobe, this, that, and the third. And then in the fourth quarter, he knocked down a lot of really clutch shots. The push off of Aaron Nesmith, I know that was very controversial. It was still a very tough shot because he was clearly off balance. But yeah.
Yeah, game. Anyone who watched me on playback during game four, well, watched us on playback during game four, or watched with us on playback. Yeah, I was very critical of SGA in game four. Very, very, very critical of SGA in game four. Didn't like his process at all. I think the final 6 minutes, the clutch time was great. But the first 3.5 quarters, I was extremely critical of him. I didn't like his process, didn't like the playmaking, didn't like any of it. And OKC won in what was a very unorthodox way. I think I'd seen like they were the only team to win a game with like 3 threes since 2010. And they had like the least amount of assists. They only had like 10 assists for the whole game, but they were still able to win. And I think it was because of the adjustments Mark Dagnall made down the stretch with his defense and then with his offense targeting Aaron Nesmith, who I believe commits the most fouls per minute, I guess, in the NBA. It's ridiculous how many fouls he commits. So I think that was what got OKC over the line. In a game that I think really could have gone either way. And I think this series is very different if Benedict Mathurin doesn't have the worst final minute in a finals game I've ever seen. That's something I'm going to die on that hill. I've had people say Nick Anderson. I've had people say J.R. Smith. I'm sorry. Benedict Mathurin, that was a step above the rest. That's the worst final minute in finals game ever. But On to game 5, series tied 2-2. I didn't know who I had winning tonight. I started the series OKC in 5. I had OKC losing game 1 and then winning the 4 straight. They lost game 1 on a crazy shot from Halliburton. I was like, okay. I didn't see them losing in that fashion, but I saw them losing game 1. They're going to win 4 straight. They then win game 2, blowout. I'm like, okay, regularly scheduled programming. They then lose game 3, and Indiana looked like the far better team. And I was like,
far better.
I was like, okay, I'm gonna say OKC in 6. I still think they have the highest floor in the NBA. I think they have a larger margin for error. But I'm watching Indiana outplay this team more than I expected them to. And then game 4 happens, and I'm watching Indiana outplay OKC again. And I remember tweeting during game 4. It might have been in the 3rd quarter. I think Indiana might have been up double digits. And I said, Indy might actually do it. And that was the first point in the series where I hadn't changed my mind. I wasn't like, yeah, I got Indy winning now. But that was the first moment where doubt set in. I was like, they can beat this team.
Yeah.
Like they are capable of beating this team. And then obviously OKC came back and won game 4. But I still left that game like there's avenues for Indiana to win this series. And I want to give Indiana the most credit I can for convincing me of that. I know they don't care about my opinion of them, but I want to give them that credit because I didn't expect them to be this competitive in this series. Especially at the start of it, but they've been amazing. And then tonight, the first quarter happened, and OKC were dominating them. Just like they were way better, forcing turnovers, capitalizing in transition. J-Dub started the game amazing, finished the game amazing. And then I look up after watching the first quarter of domination, and it's like a 6-point game.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how are they still in this game? How are they still here? And then the game just progresses. And then OKC open up the lead to 18. I think it's like 16 for a while. I'm like, okay, OKC seem to be comfortable, but you can't count out Indiana. And then they just start mounting a comeback. TJ McConnell just getting to the rim at will, just dominating. Pascal Siakam is scoring against mismatches, and he's looking really good when he doesn't have to play in a crowd. Now, the turnovers were problematic, and we'll get into that. But Indiana was just chipping away at the lead, just ever so slightly, just chipping away at the leads. And then we get to the point, I think they made it a 2-point game.
It was a 2-point game. It was a 2-point game.
And then they had another Benedict Mathurin tonight, and his name was Andrew Nembhard. Some of the turnovers in the 4, like, I've come a long way on my philosophy on turnovers. When I first came on a platform where I was the first on PC, my opinion of turnovers are never good, but some turnovers are better than others. And then it became a thing where I don't even mind turnovers if the benefits outweigh the risk. If you're making the high leverage reads, blah, 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 I'm willing to accept some turnovers as a trade-off from that. It was like, I don't really view Russell Westbrook's turnovers as detrimental as other people because he's taken the playmaking burden for the whole team. So if he's getting 5 turnovers, the rest of the team is only really getting like 4. So it's like, it's not really a problem because he's just taking the burden that the team would get. Pretty much, yes.
Harden, Young.
And then I've watched like the current NBA, and that's why I say the league has changed even in the last 3 years. Turnovers are so detrimental nowadays. Like even more so than I think they were 3 years ago, that all it takes is 2 or 3 turnovers at the wrong time, and the game is just over.
Game is over.
And Andrew Nembhard was getting some egregious turnovers. He overthrew Benedict Mathurin under the rim. It was a nice read. Like if he could make the pass, it's a really nice read. And then he thought Hallie was going to come for the DHO, but Hallie cut back door off the overplay, turnover. That's a miscommunication that led to a run out. That's crazy. And it's like just those turnovers at the most inopportune times were just so detrimental to what Indiana had going on. But the elephant in the room.
Yes, the elephant.
Mr. Top 5 point guard. Mr. Top 5
player.
Yeah, Mr. Top 5 player. Tyrese Halliburton. You couldn't make one shot the whole game. You couldn't make one shot. I understand calf tightness. I know what it's like to deal with lower extremity issues. It's hard to play. I understand that. But at some point, it's got to be like, you just shouldn't be on the court if that's the case. Like, if you can't help the team, and I got to a point, Halliburton was not helping the team. In fact, he's probably hurting the team.
You could have kept him on the bench.
Just get off the, like, TJ McConnell playing the way he was playing and then not seeing the floor in the fourth until like the game was over. Crazy to me, especially when you look at how Halliburton was playing. So if you can't go, I understand wanting to battle through it, wanting to not leave your teammates out to dry, blah, blah, blah. But at some point, there's got to be a level of self-awareness either from you or there's got to be awareness from the team that, hey, this guy isn't helping us right now. Compromised or not, we need to get him off the court. We can't be like, this is the NBA Finals. Series tied 2-2. The Game 5 winner wins 74% of the time, or whatever the stat is. We can't afford to jeopardize that because our best player wants to be out there for his team battling. Like, I'm sorry, we can't risk that. So that's my issue with tonight. I think Halliburton was terrible. I think Rick Carlisle went away from TJ, especially when TJ seemed to be the only guy who could get consistent paint touches. And I feel Andrew Nembhard's turnovers, Halliburton's overall play, not sticking with TJ. Those are the three reasons in Indiana's control that I think led to them losing tonight. What are your thoughts? Why did Indiana, before we get to OKC, why did Indiana lose?
You could tell from the very beginning they were completely sped up, and you can tell by the turnovers. Like, the turnovers they were getting were a bunch of losing the ball off the dribble, whether they're dribbling off their foot, off their knee. They're just completely sped up. I think Nembhard had a possession where he just flat out slipped because they're just moving way too fast. And another thing is Tyrese Halliburton not being able to consistently get paint touches, and I think that's the difference between why TJ McConnell was the offense looked a lot better with TJ McConnell on the floor, because TJ McConnell is going to relentlessly attack the rim. Whatever he can do to get to the rim, he's going to do it. And I feel as though allowing the OKC Thunder defense to collapse the way that they did made a lot more ground that had to be made up when TJ would make a swing pass to a Siakam or to a Nesmith, to where they have time to set their feet and knock down a shot. They have time to dribble, drive, and kick. They have time to get the ball swinging a little bit more. Sometimes when Halliburton was in the game, it just looked like, Pascal, I'm going to put my head down, run to the rim, and see if I get fouled. Or the same could happen with Andrew Nembhard. That wasn't the best. That wasn't the best. They were getting a lot of turnovers. As soon as the ball gets down low, OKC were swarming. It's just like they had a force field around the paint when Tyrese Halliburton was in the game, and stopping Andrew Nembhard from getting to the paint, Nesmith getting to the paint. Every time Siakam tried to seal off his defender to get a post touch, they did a really good job covering that as well. It just was really tough for the Pacers throughout the entire game. And it looked like a replay of game one, to be completely honest, because in the first half, the Pacers were racking up a lot of turnovers. They weren't able to create easy offense. It looked like they were sped up a lot. And this time, OKC was getting out in transition. They were getting those easy shots in transition. I'm not even going to move on to OKC, but the Pacers, they look completely sped up tonight, and they looked out of their element. They didn't look comfortable for a single second while Halliburton was on the floor.
Yeah, I'm not going to say I don't know where Indiana go from here. I do think they've got to become more organized in their offensive approach. And I think it also, like, some of it away from X's and O's is when you run an egalitarian offense, which is what Indiana does, which is why I'm against the idea of just giving one person all the credit when this team wins. Any player, whether that be Halliburton or that is, for tonight, let's say Tony Bradley. So number one in their rotation, Halliburton, or bottom of their rotation, Tony Bradley. Any one of those guys having a horrible game just throws the whole team off. And that's because you run this system where you need everyone to be contributing. When you have a system like a Houston James Harden, for example, the burden is heavily on him because he's the one monopolizing the ball. He's the one creating shots for others. What's their responsibility is knocking down the shots that he creates. But with Indiana, it's everyone's responsibility to create shots for each other, to keep the ball moving, to not turn the ball over, make the right decisions. And when you empower everyone to have that sort of burden, any player, any cog in that machine not performing, the whole machine breaks. And you can't afford a Nemhard bad game. You definitely can't afford a Halliburton bad game. Not to this degree, obviously. And that's where it becomes problematic for Indiana. So it really is just as simple as they have to play better. And that means they have to be able to navigate the ball pressure. They have to be able to get to the rim. The only guy who seems to be able to get to the rim at this point is Pascal on mismatches when he's seeing one-on-one coverage, and TJ. And Benedict Mathurin on like frantic drives getting to the free throw line. No one else seems to be able to get to the rim. And that's a testament to obviously OKC's defense, but there is a heavy lack of individual creation on this team, which is why they're so predicated on the ball movement and stuff. But ball movement without advantages just turns into aimless passing. That's really what it is. And I mean that like with no disrespect, but you have advantage creation is the single most important thing in the NBA. And when you aren't consistently creating advantages, all of these passes end up just being a waste of time. And that's the issue I think Indiana are running into. But onto OKC. There's only one place we can start.
Mr. Jalen Williams.
Mr. Jalen Williams. I'm gonna let you go first. Speak to me about Jalen Williams.
I thought it's funny because he's impacted the game in so many different ways. As a shooter, cutter, transition player. You said it on Twitter. He got like the same dunk in like once every quarter, damn near from like the first quarter to the third. It was like a Isaiah Hardenstein post up at the elbow. J-Dub just cuts middle, easy dunk every time. Off an inbound, it was off transition. Just cutting to the basket, he was really good. In transition, he was really good. His shot making was really good. The defense was there, and it's so scary to me to see these three players figure it out. I think Chet is still getting there. I think J-Dub is still getting there, but you're definitely seeing the improvement live as we speak. Like, we don't usually see players that are so pivotal to a championship team be this young and have to improve this much on the fly. It's like we're watching these guys grow into what we think they can be in the NBA finals. Like, that's crazy to me. And it's so crazy to say that it's so crazy to think that this may be the worst they are as a big three. Like, I think that's crazy to me. But he was fantastic in this game. I think he had 40 points. He was great. And he is starting to get some buzz as a finals MVP, even though I don't think it's his as of right now, but he is having some buzz there.
Yeah. I asked a question because everyone knows I don't really care too much about the accolades. I was just curious how people felt about it. Overwhelming majority is still on Shay's side for the award. Shay had like 30 and 10 tonight.
Yeah.
Shout out to Shay. But yeah, J-Dub was amazing. This is the same J-Dub who, during the Denver series, I said J-Dub is not a good enough offensive player. And I don't know what I said he wasn't good enough for. Like, I don't know if I was saying he's not good enough, like, just as your second offensive option, or if I was saying he wasn't good enough to be like a superstar. Like, I just said he wasn't a good enough offensive player. I didn't say good enough for what. And I couldn't tell you what was going through my mind when I said that. It was probably after one of J-Dub's 3 for 16 games or something. So
yeah.
And I still think the flaws are there. But when J-Dub has it going and he's able to use his length to finish and he's driving with authority and he's not just settling for these step backs and he's able to get driving angles and he's able to finish, and like, he looks really, really good when the mid-range jumper is a fullback option for J-Dub, not a go-to. When it's a counter, not the first resort, he looks so much better. When he has these driving angles, or he's able to manufacture these driving angles using his strength, and his handle is very functional for a guy his size. It's not elite, but it is very functional, just being able to get where he wants to go, especially without the heavy ball pressure. He looks really, really, really good. And that's something I guess I've undersold of J-Dub, because I have been on the lower side with him offensively. I've definitely been team Chet is better than J-Dub. Offensively, it's not a question. J-Dub is by far and away the better player. And I was just like, well, Chet to me, one of the 5 best defenders in the sport. J-Dub doesn't replicate that impact. But I'll be damned. J-Dub is a special defender. So sure, I'm fine with saying J-Dub is their second best player. I don't think it really matters. Like, considering they're on the same team as each other, but I think it gets to a point where J-Dub is just so much better offensively than Chet that I do think it gets to a point where it'd be pointless for me to still be hanging on to the theory of Chet offensively as opposed to what he really is providing on a game-to-game basis. Now, with all that being said, yeah, Shea should be the Finals MVP. He's been the best player in the series. Is what it is. But J-Dub has been great. Chet defensively in the fourth quarter of last game and then the whole of tonight, amazing. He's taking away the rim completely. Like I said, the only person who can get there is TJ, but TJ's struggling to finish over Chet. Obi's struggling to finish over Chet. Hallie, you name it, they're struggling to finish over Chet. But then you'll see the 2 layups that someone will make with Chet in the vicinity. Oh, yep, look at him. Chet just getting fried. He's through to the rim. Chet's been amazing defensively. Offensively, the limitations are still there. Still not comfortable as a self-creator. The mid-range game is not anything to write home about. He's bringing the ball very low on his offensive rebounds and getting it stripped from him. That's a problem I have with a lot of bigs. Chet's just not strong enough to bring the ball down there amongst the guards who are fighting for it. So he needs to just chill out on that. And then Shea, I was very critical of his playmaking in game 4. Total opposite tonight. Very willing to get off the ball, seeing the help, making the right reads, whether that's him getting the assist or getting the pre-assist, hockey assist, whatever you want to call it, or just creating good shots for his teammates consistently, and then still being able to score one-on-one, getting to his spots in the mid-range, getting there comfortably. His handle is still just very, very tight for the amount of pressure he's seeing. And then defensively, making plays at the rim, playing in the passing lanes, competing, staying attached on screens. Like this was the most engaged I think Shea's been on defense all series. Maybe it's because J-Dub had more offensively, so like Shea could just exert more energy defensively. Maybe that's the reason, or Shea knew what this game meant and knew that he had to be fully engaged on defense. Whatever the reason is, this was by far Shea's best defensive game. And OKC needed it. And in a game where my king, Alex Caruso, struggled offensively, everyone else was able to pick up. Aaron Wiggins, 3 huge threes in the first half. Huge threes. Cason Wallace finally joined the party.
Yes.
He finally joined the party. Lou Dort banking in the 3. How many offensive rebounds did Isaiah Hartenstein have? A bunch of offensive rebounds, off free throws, off missed shots. Like he was crashing everything. I think that was huge in the time he played.
6 offensive rebounds.
6 offensive rebounds, goddamn. And I'm still not a big fan of the double big lineup in this series. I still think that the mobility is playing into Indiana's hands. But Isaiah Hartenstein is finding ways to impact the game. And I think that's all you could ask for. Whether he's starting or coming off the bench doesn't really make much of a difference in the 20 or so minutes he plays. If he's able to dominate on the offensive glass, if he's able to still be the hub of the offense, those things are going to be very valuable. I think OKC are the better team. And I've been saying it all series long, even when they were down 2-1. I just think they are the better team, but the better team doesn't always win a series. But I think OKC now control their own destiny. They have 2 games to win 1. And I'm very strongly of the side that if you're up 3-2, you don't want to go to game 7. You don't want to risk, because anything can happen in the game 7. Anything can happen. Whether that be team just gets uncharacteristically hot from 3 and now you're down 15, or you go uncharacteristically cold from 3. Like anything can happen. You don't want to leave it up to chance. So I think OKC know that they're going to want to close this out in 6. But Indiana playing with their backs against the walls. Tyrese Halliburton knows he has to be better. Nemhard knows he has to be better. Aaron Nesmith knows he has to stop trying to foul out every game. I don't know what's wrong with him and these fouls. But I'm going to ask you, where's this series going? Are we seeing a game 7?
I don't think this goes back to OKC. I don't think this goes back to OKC. It's been a fun series. But I don't think it goes back to OKC. I think the Pacers are going to have a much better game, but I think the Thunder, we've seen the Thunder in elimination games just be able to turn up the pressure on the ball, be able to get turnovers. They blitzed Denver. They blitzed OKC. They blitzed Memphis, even though Memphis was already hampered.
They blitzed OKC.
They blitzed Denver. They blitzed Minnesota, and they blitzed Memphis. That's on me. Another thing I wanted to mention real fast about the offensive rebounds. Chet, Ihart, and Lou Dort combined for 16 of their 19 offensive rebounds together. Like, the level of fight they had on the offensive glass it's amazing. But I think OKC closed it out in 6. I think they closed it out in 6 in Indiana. I know they wanted to win it in front of their home crowd, but I just don't think going to a game 7 against how hot we've seen this Pacer team get in any given moment is a good idea. Like,
I agree.
I think this is the last team you would want to chance this with. Like, the best 3-point shooting team in the playoffs, the most efficient team in the playoffs, a team that's going to get good looks relatively consistently. I wouldn't want to bet that we can just win this game in 7 because we want to win on our home floor. If I'm OKC, I'm playing like I'm down 3-2. So yeah, I would want to close this out in 6. I wouldn't want to take the chance, because if it goes to 7 games, I truly don't know who would win that game. Just because you don't know what you're getting. You don't know what you're getting from the Thunder on the offensive side of the ball, and it would be just their luck that J-Dub's 1 for 6 from 3. Chet can't beat Miles Turner off the bounce. Tyrese Halliburton is hitting every pick and roll 3-pointer imaginable. Aaron Nesmith is knocking down threes from in transition. Ryan Nembhard is tween step back. Like, did I say Ryan Nembhard?
Yes, you did.
Andrew Nembhard, his older brother. Yeah, so I wouldn't want to take it to 7.
Yeah, me too. Just, you want to win a series as soon as possible. We want to win in front of our home crowd. Man, you want to win a championship. Like, let's be honest. Like, if you could have won the series in a sweep in Game 4 in Indiana, you would have took it. Like,
yeah,
I'm not listening 100%. To this nonsense. But the more I'm watching this OKC team, like, I don't know if I'm manufacturing them or I'm genuinely seeing them. I'm seeing so many parallels between them and the 2015 Warriors. Like, a whole bunch of parallels. Like, in terms of being a really young team, a lot of people forget, like, the average age of that Warriors team was also really young. And it was a team that was questioned because of different reasons: experience with OKC, a jump shooting team with Golden State. They also went down 2-1 in the finals to a team that they probably shouldn't have gone down 2-1 to, considering the Cavs injuries. And then just in terms of like their young core, you have this defensive monster in Chet and Draymond, and then you have like this two-way wing in Clay and J-Dub, and then you have this league MVP, top 3 player on the planet in Shea and Steph. And it's like, I'm starting to see some parallels between these two teams in the way they were discussed, in the way they perform, and maybe in the way they win a championship. I don't know. It's just something I'm thinking about. But I think besides game 1, I think I picked OKC in every game. Is that going to change for game 6? I don't know. I want to see a game 7. Like, the neutral in me, I want to see a game 7. But I just know how OKC have come out when everything is on the line. In previous series, whether that be against, like you said, Minnesota in that game 5. I also saw them lose up 3-2 in game 6 to Denver. So it's possible. I just think there's so much for Indiana to do better. But I feel like if Indiana throw their best shot and OKC throw their best shot, OKC will win. And I think if Indiana throw their worst shot and OKC throw their worst shot, OKC will win. So I don't know. I'm a lean towards OKC, but the neutral in me is hoping for a game 7. We do have a few super chats, and then there was a trade that you said you wanted to talk about, so we can do that as well.
Yes.
Tank Jones said 1 more win, we're bringing that ring back home. Yeah, it's disappointing. We're at most 2 games away from the end of the NBA season, and then we'll see Summer League in July, but no official NBA basketball regular season or postseason till October. It's a dark time, man.
Yeah, this is where the conversations start getting really disgusting.
This one I'm gonna have to be locked into the WNBA because I'm not trying.
WNBA time. I've already started getting into the groove of watching the games and just getting ready for that. The summer league is what I'm looking forward to. That's like the very next thing, because I'm gonna be watching that closely. You know, I got some agendas with Kaman Malawatch, but I'm gonna be locked in on that. But real fast, it was something I wanted to say. Oh, I think these games on both sides, even if it does go to a game 7, it could be won within like 3 minutes. Like, just how quick OKC can build a lead based off turnovers and how hot Indiana can get. Like we saw in the fourth quarter, OKC generates 4 straight turnovers. Like that's the game. That's the game. You know, especially if they're converting. And then Indiana, how hot they can get. Tyrese Halliburton pick and roll 3, Obi Toppin lob dunk, Miles Turner wide open top of the key 3. They can generate really good looks, and 3 out of the 5 possessions they can knock down a 3, to where they both can build substantial leads extremely quickly, to where it's really hard to beat teams like that consistently. That's why we see, like, this is Indiana's first time losing back-to-back games in the postseason. The Thunder still haven't done it, you know, because they have such a high floor and they can build a lead extremely fast. So that's something that I look at in this series, especially if it will go 7.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that, which is why it's also why I think it's so hard for either team to blow the other out, because of that just aspect where even when you're down double digits, like either team can just go on a run and now the game's close again. It's a more evenly matched finals than I anticipated. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Cujo said, I was on a flight back to Chicago. Shout out to John D. Man, this man J-Dub is the effing truth. Shout out to him and the rest of the crew. # job not finished. Yeah, I think J-Dub deserves the utmost flowers and respect for what he's done the last 3 games, but in particular last night, because I was, I guess, against the grain after game. Was it game 3? Yeah, game 3. I wasn't particularly high on J-Dub's performance. I know he had like 26 or something, but I wasn't particularly high on it. But the last 2 games in particular, J-Dub has been really, really good. And then defensively throughout the series, I think he's been amazing, just making plays at the rim, doing a really good job on Pascal, switching out, high-level communicator, getting deflections, getting steals, just amazing. So shout out to J-Dub. Like I said, probably not going to be the finals MVP. Absolutely does not matter. Doesn't take away from how great he's been. But just full respect to J-Dub, someone who I've been low on in the past. Well, lower on in the past, and probably someone who I should give a bit more respect to. So I shall start doing that. And then Yaya Jallo said, is it just me or was Shea making reads he never makes? Shea does this weird things where he'll go from looking like the worst playmaker in the history of the sport to looking like an elite one, just on a game-to-game, possession-to-possession, quarter-to-quarter basis. And it just really depends on what he wants to do. I would really love to understand the rationale with Shea and why, when he decides he just doesn't want to look at his teammates, or the other times when he decides that he wants to make every correct read in the book. So Shea's a weird case in that regard. But tonight, yeah, he was making just consistently the right reads, driving into the middle of the paint, drawing multiple defenders, kicking out to the wing for 3s, kicking out to the wing, open corner 3s. Just Shea had a really good game. Obviously, Jada will get the large share of the credit, which I still think is rightful. But Shea did have a really good game tonight. But anyway, before we get out of here, big trade in the NBA.
Yes,
Desmond
sir.
Bane to Orlando. What are your thoughts?
Well, you know, I am Apollo guy. I am Apollo stan. And I think this is a really good fit. And I'm in a position right now where I look at the NBA and I look at how wide open the Eastern Conference is. I know some people may not believe the Eastern Conference is wide open, but I'm sure a lot of teams around the Eastern Conference are looking at this and saying Boston is going to be hampered. Jason Tatum, I'm assuming, is going to miss majority, or if not the entire season next year. You have the Knicks, you have the Cavs, you have Indiana, really big sleeper, the Sixers. You know, if I'm these teams, I'm being aggressive. And if I'm Orlando, we get a 3-point shooting 2 guard who can put the ball on the floor, who's gotten a lot better as a playmaker, one of the best shooters in the entire NBA on volume. I think he's a 40+% career 3-point shooter. You go make that move. Now, I know a lot of people are a little hesitant with the 2026 Suns pick. I don't know if there's any protections on that or anything, but
they get the worst of the Wizards and Suns pick next year. So
it might not be that bad.
It depends what the Suns do. But assuming the Wizards suck next year, which Wizards fans, I think you're also aware, you will be tanking again. So the Wizards pick will convey to the Wizards. They will get their pick, which means the Suns pick will go to Memphis. And if the Suns are anything like they were this year, that will be a lottery pick. Now, where it falls in the lottery, we don't know. but it's potentially a pretty good pick.
So in my idea, I think they go get Desmond Bane. I think that was a really good move. I think he could fit really well with Paulo and Franz, and I think they can be a team that makes a run. I don't think they got worse defensively in this move. You still have Jalen Suggs, you still have Jonathan Isaac, you still have Franz Wagner, you still have a second pick in the first round. I think it's late to mid 20s, so you're not going to have that 16th pick, even though there was a prospect at the around the 16th spot that I would have loved for them to go get, but you get Desmond Bane. You still have a first round pick. Paulo Banchero, in my opinion, is right there. He's right there to being that top 15, top 20 player that I think he could be. I think Franz Wagner is still one of the better players or one of the better wings at just having a really good first step, really good playmaker. When he's on the floor, the Magic are a way better transition team, way better half-court offense. Wendell Carter generates better looks. Goga Batadze gets better looks. His brother gets better looks. I think you have something with those two wings. And then you have Jalen Suggs at the point of attack. Now you have Desmond Bane, who can play make, can create advantages out of advantages that were already created for him, whether it's a late closeout, he can spray the three, or he can attack that as well, make the right pass to a Paulo Banchero, who doesn't necessarily have to start on the perimeter anymore. I think Paulo Banchero now can have his perimeter play taken away by Desmond Bane, and he can now start at the elbow a little bit more. This is something that I've been talking about with Paulo Banchero a lot more now, because now if you have a Desmond Bane on the wing and you allow him to be the next pass over, I think it could generate a lot more one-on-one looks for Paulo Banchero at the elbow, to where he doesn't have to dribble 5, 6, 7 times to get the separation that he needs. I think he needs to stay the mismatch attacking player that he was to start the year and to finish the year. He got a lot better towards the end of the year. Franz Wagner still being that really good downhill wing that can play make, finish around the rim, has a really good first step. This team is still incredibly deep with Tristan da Silva, who I think is going to get better. Anthony Black, Goga Batadze, who I think is really valuable. Wendell Carter, you could possibly move to bring in some more prospects or assets. I think this team is really good. And I think they can do, like, I know a lot of people talk about the guard play. I think Paulo, Franz, and Desmond Bane are all solid decision makers, to where you still would need a point guard, but I don't think it's as big of a problem as people make it out to be. I think Paulo's a really good passer. I think Franz is a really good passer. I think Desmond Bane is a solid passer, to where they can create offense. They can create offense for themselves and for others. And then if you're telling me your offense gets a lot better, and now you already walk into the season last year having a top 5 defense, I think there's a world where the Magic can make a real run in the playoffs next year.
Yeah, I think the league thinks the East is wide open. Obviously with what happened to Boston, I still think even though they lost in round 2, they were seen as like the juggernaut of the East per se, like the team that was the best, the team that was going to be the one you had to overcome if you wanted to win the East. And I think with Jason Tatum's obviously unfortunate injury, a lot of Eastern Conference teams are going to think that next year is their chance to speed up the window, really give themselves a chance to be, quite frankly, the next Indiana, the team that no one really saw coming, but we might be one piece away, not a superstar, but one piece away from making that run if we just have the right pieces all come together at the right time and we gel and we go on a run. And I think that's what this move does. This is the same Desmond Bane who, when we did our top 10 at each position, which feels like a long time ago now, we both had Desmond Bane at number 5. We both said Desmond Bane was the 5th best shooting guard in the league, which I think is a fair spot. We both raved about his movement shooting, his ability to play on and off ball, the versatility, blah, 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 his defensive utility, the improved playmaking that we saw in their expanded role on the stinky Memphis Grizzlies from 2024. So I think we were both relatively high on Desmond Bane as a player. I try not to, like, anytime a trade happens and then like you'll see people go live that same day within the hour, and all of a sudden they've analyzed the whole team and they know what's going to happen. These are the sets they're going to run. They're going to do this. They're going to go to the finals. I feel like that's not really possible. Like, I feel like you do have to sit down and really think about like how this team is going to set up, how they're going to look. So I try not to talk about trades instantly. beyond the fact that I just don't care about the picks. Respectfully, like I just don't care. Besides the Phoenix pick, like they're all going to be late 20s. And I'm 87% sure none of those picks are going to turn into a player better than Desmond Bane is. I'm also 99% sure that none of those players would turn into a player that would help the Magic contend quicker than Desmond Bane would. So I don't care about the picks. I feel like a lot of people seem to value hypothetical value over like tangible physical value. These picks in 2029 provide hypothetical value 6 years from now. Why would I choose that over the player who provides me instantaneous value? Never makes sense to me, but people value what they want to value. And then on Desmond Bane, I do think he provides a need in terms of the shooting. Obviously, this is the worst shooting team in the NBA. One of the worst shooting teams relative to era. Like if you factor in the fact that this is a league where you need to be able to shoot, I don't think I've seen a team shoot worse than this Orlando team. And he provides that need. He's able to shoot in a variety of ways, which is extremely valuable. I was meant to ask you, are you concerned that Desmond Bane has shot 28% from three over the last two playoffs?
No. I mean, part of me, I saw the clip. I think it was worded. I think it was worded wrong. I think it was just you may be concerned about how he plays against top tier defenses in the playoffs. OKC is a top tier defense in the playoffs. The Lakers were one of the better playoff defenses that year as well. He had a lot more responsibility, especially once John Morant went down. And John Morant was hampered in that series against the Lakers as well. But I'm not worried about it. I think he's going to get some really good looks next to Paolo and Franz. Those are two guys that can create rim pressure, whether it's Paolo's brute strength or Franz's first step. I think they're going to be able to create rim pressure consistently, and I think Desmond Bane's going to be able to capitalize off of that. And I think he can play really well, especially as an on-ball creator in the pick and roll with Paolo. That could be really exciting to see how they could build a two-man game if that was something that they could build out. But yeah, I'm not as concerned. No.
Okay, so the 10-game sample is not concerning. Okay. Yeah, I think Bane provides a need. I think there are some interesting things that I think Orlando now have the flexibility to do. Paolo loves his guard screens. Like he loves having his guard screen for him, whether that's be to force a switch or to just have that quick slip out for the open guard three. Now, instead of that being a Jalen Suggs or a KCP who couldn't hit the ocean from a boat, you now have Desmond Bane, who I think is one of the best shooters in the NBA, running that action with. I also think that does, like you said, open up the opportunity for Paolo to be more of a screener, to get him going in the middle of the floor more. I would like to see Paolo explore that part of his game more, because a lot of what he does comes from like either side of the court, where you have like the side cleared for him, so no one in the strong side corner, and you got everyone else on the other side, and because they have no spacing, so you got a big in the dunker spot, and then you got three around the opposite side wing, which allows two on the backside to play three, obviously, and then it just shrinks basically a lot of Paolo's playmaking angles. So I think getting Paolo in the middle of the floor more can diversify his attack and help his playmaking. I also think that this is practically putting your eggs in the Paolo and Franz improvement, which I think is a good thing for a franchise to do. If you are going to give Franz the max extension, which they did last year, and you are going to give Paolo the max extension, which I think is quite obviously coming at this point, you have to bank on their improvement. You can't, you have to bank that Franz is going to become a better outside shooter, whether that be from mid-range or from three, ideally both. Paolo is going to become a better ball handler. He's going to become a better decision maker. He's going to improve on his shot selection and some of the other flaws in his game. And if he does all of that, then Desmond Bane is perfect. If he doesn't do those things, I think you end up in a problem where this team is still going to have a ceiling. And that ceiling is going to be, when does their offense hinder them? And that might be in the first round against a tough opponent. That might be in the second round. That might even get them to the conference finals, depending on opponent and whatever. But if Paolo doesn't take the leap that you expect, because you are higher on Paolo than I am, I don't think that's a secret. I've only just recently decided he's better than Franz, and that's no knock on Paolo. I'm just really high on Franz, but I'm hesitant on where is Paolo going with what he is. I see the potential, but do I see him reaching it? I don't know. That's just something that I have to wait and see. I do obviously think if he does, then this is a whole different Orlando team that I do think catapults itself into that upper echelon of the East. But you are banking on that happening.
I need that.
It's not a problem. I always think it's good to have confidence in your young guys, especially when they've shown reason to have confidence. When you're a guy like Paolo, who's shown the flashes the early part of the season and that last month or so when he really got back from his injury and looks like himself, you bank on that level of that level of talent and the flashes that you've seen from a guy who's 22 or whatever. Same with France, someone who's shown that level of talent, you bank on that. Now, other teams that are banking on young talent that probably hasn't shown as many flashes, Houston. It's like, but like, I still see the vision. So I do think this trade just does depend on what the Paolo and France look like. I think Desmond Bane is going to be a great player for what he does wherever he goes, but their ceiling is ultimately determined by Paolo and France, and then Jalen Suggs' offensive game, I think, in a role where he doesn't have the ball in his hands barely ever on offense and is able to really just focus on being the best defensive guard in the league, which I think he has the potential to be. I'm not saying he is. I think he has the potential to be that. Alongside Desmond Bane, who I do think is very valuable in defense within his role. And then France, who I do view as a really, really good defender. Paolo, who I think can be competent within the scheme and has potential to be a really good defender himself. Jonathan Isaac, everyone knows how I feel about him. Goga, everyone knows how I feel about him prior to his injury last year. I think he was an elite defender. So you haven't really taken away from that identity and you've really bolstered your offense along with projected jumps. Orlando, to me, top 3-4 team in the East, I think, is probably where they're aiming to be, and then obviously hope for a run. So yeah, I think it's a really good trade. Is there anything you want to say about Memphis' side of this?
Penn brought this up to me in the episode yesterday where they may have a shot at KD because they have that 26 Suns pick. Now, I don't know if that may be their avenue, letting go Desmond and bringing in Kevin Durant, but there's a prospect by the name of Cedric Coward around that 16th pick. Very, very seasoned in college. He has a really nice mid-range pull-up, can spot up from three, very strong, very nice defender. I would really like him next to John Morant. I would really like him next to John Morant. He would have to really get better as a ball handler, in my opinion, because it's like, as role players now, you just have to have a layered game. But as far as like attacking closeouts and hitting mid-range shots and guarding on the perimeter, I think he does that pretty well. Now, he only had a 6-game sample size. I think it was at Washington State, but he does play really well. I think if they're not going to move that pick for something better, I think they can really fill out this roster pretty well around Ja and Jaren, and they can make something work. You have Zach Edey, you have Jalen Wells. We still are waiting to see what we can get out of Gigi Jackson and Vince Williams. You know, you still have a lot you can work with as a team. And bringing in 4 first-round picks in a swap, that's solid. You know, you can use KCP and Cole Anthony as salary fillers for any trade you want to use, because I don't think Cole Anthony is going to be a third-string guard for them. I still think Ja and Scotty are going to be their rotation at the guard position. And then maybe if a team, maybe even like the Lakers, because we need some depth, if they want to go get a Cole Anthony, you know, that you can answer the phone. So I don't hate this trade for Memphis. I really don't. It was obviously time for them to move into another direction. Now, if that was getting off of Jaren, Desmond, or Ja, who knows? But it was time to try something new. It was time.
I agree with that. I think Ja was looking better as the season went on. There's still obvious concerns about just his game and how it's going to age, and is he even improving in the areas you want to see improve? But I think he's improved mightily as a playmaker and decision maker. But the scoring, I'm kind of not off, but like guards who have the ball as much as John Moran does, and he had the ball less this year prior to Taylor Jenkins getting fired, and then they kind of just put the ball back in his hands, and then you saw John Moran, oh look, he's still good at basketball. But like, I'm kind of like, when you have the ball that much and you're as limited as a scorer, it's kind of why I'm like getting lower and lower on Trae Young as the years go by. It's like at some point you can't be this limited as a scorer and you have the ball this much. So that's my concern with John Moran. I do think there has to be just some level of improvement from him. Jaren Jackson, I'm at the point where no matter what he does in the regular season, I just think he's going to fall off a cliff in the playoffs. Like the decision making, the playmaking, the fouling issues, they all just become so much more problematic in the postseason. I understand they went up against OKC, but these are flaws that have been showing every time he's in the playoffs. And like, it goes onto the radar, but like, he was the Western Conference Julius Randle, and Julius Randle had a really good postseason. So this is Knicks Julius Randle. He was the Western Conference equivalent. Like, in my opinion, offensively. And it just kept going under the radar, and I don't know why. But like, he has to improve offensively if Memphis want to go anywhere. GG Jackson is young, but what I saw from him this year was just not good. Like, he just wasn't a good player. He just didn't justify even getting on the court. Jalen Wells was young, and I'm very interested to see what his role is next year. Still probably going to be that point of attack guy. Is his offensive role going to be expanded? I don't know. Is he going to start over KCP? I don't know. But there are some interesting things I think you can do with Jalen Wells. I would also look into just going with a double point guard lineup with Ja Morant and Scottie Pippen, just maximizing ball handling out there, because I do think that's really important as opposed to just having Ja as the only ball handler. Not saying that's what you should do, but I would explore it. I don't know what direction not Desmond. I don't know what direction Memphis are going in. I don't know if they're still trying to compete or if they're gonna just be a competent team, like a playing low playoff team, or if they're blowing it up when Jaren Jackson is the next to go or Ja's the next to go. I don't know what's going on in Memphis, so it's kind of hard for me to project what's happening going forward. I just know Santi Aldama, I think, has expired. He's one of the worst defenders in the NBA. Really nice offensive role player, really nice. Can do a whole lot of things for you. Defensively, he just sucks. Luke Kennard is off the books. Really nice shooter. Improved as a passer and decision maker. That was cool to see. Sucks on defense. Marvin Bagley, obviously, they're not going to bring him back. Really talented player. They're not going to bring him back. I really like Vince Williams, just like in theory, like really good defender. Can do some things offensively. Really like Jay Huff. Didn't get a whole lot of minutes down the stretch, but I really like Jay Huff. I think he's a really good player. John Conchar is like their little, will bring you in, press 94 feet, just hustle, do a whole bunch of things. So I like him. Zach Edey, I think, is out till like December. Or no, till like October. He just had an ankle surgery. So we'll see how he looks. Like, there's so many question marks for Memphis that I think the picks were a good thing for them to get, to have some flexibility to decide which direction they want to go. They either attach those picks to players to upgrade the roster, or they use those, offload more players and just stockpile picks to rebuild. I don't know what they're going to do. But they do have the flexibility to decide what they want to do, which I think is a good thing. So I think it's a win-win trade. I think a lot of people are obsessed with just who lost the trade, who got robbed. I don't think either team got robbed. I think Orlando got what they wanted, which was immediate improvement and a chance to compete. And I think Memphis got what they wanted, which was the option to do what they want. Now, whatever they choose to do, we'll analyze that decision when they make it. But that's kind of where I'm at on the Memphis side. But we will see. We would definitely see. But anyway, when is game 6?
Thursday.
Damn, such a long break. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so Thursday evening, we will be back. We will either have new NBA champions or we'll be getting ready for a game 7. So either way, you don't want to miss our next episode of the HoopTalk podcast. Before we get out of here, John D, where can everyone find you?
You guys can find me over at the Buzzer Sports. If you guys are regulars here at the HoopTalk podcast, you guys know what I do. I do draft content. I do film breakdowns. I do reactions. I do what ifs. I do anything that involves basketball. I was this close to doing a WNBA film breakdown. This close. I might just do it because why not? Why not? You know, Caitlin Clark film breakdown, Nafisa breakdown, Asia Wilson breakdown, whatever you want, you know. But the NBA draft is just around the corner. So I've been working on a lot of draft content. We just dropped a mock draft. We have the top 10 guards of the 2025 NBA draft coming out. Same with forwards, same with centers. So we have a whole bunch of content coming out. We're also going to be doing a year 3 preview for Victor Wembanyama. And can he become the best player in the world as soon as year 3? Find out over at the Buzzer Sports.
Double O promo. As always, I did run the poll of who will win the series. OKC took 90% of the vote. So we're at a point where I think people are leaning towards OKC. Well, overwhelmingly leaning towards OKC. But anyway, we will see you on Thursday. You'll see me on the panel throughout the week. How much I speak will depend on what nonsense is going on. I just tapped into playback and Ron was still arguing about Steve Nash for whatever reason, right? As the final buzzer sounded. So I don't know what tomorrow's gonna hold. So don't expect me to say a whole much based on what I think might happen tomorrow. But you will catch me here Thursday, catch me on the panel during the week. As always, thank you guys for watching. Merry Christmas and goodbye, Dab. There we go.